I'm going to show you how to use storytelling to be able to increase the amount of income that your business makes, impact that your business has, and influence that your marketing has within your audience. And so I'm just coming off of a speaking event that I did out in Washington, D.C. at the Business Leaders Network Summit. And I shared this talk with them. But the problem is I only got 20 minutes to talk. And A, I'm pretty long-winded. But B, the topic on storytelling and how to use this to grow your business is a big topic. And so what I'm going to do today is give you a full masterclass where I'm going to hold nothing back. I'm going to show you the insights that I've had that have helped me. I'm going to give you practical tools, templates, and even examples to show you how to be able to integrate this into your content and into your marketing to help you be able to grow your business. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on in. And so I started the talk off with showing a whole montage on my Ninja Warrior. Now, if you want to see this clip, just let me know. I showed, the whole training regimen that I did kind of leading up to, eventually getting onto the show American Ninja Warrior. And the whole premise of this, and why I'm fast forwarding through it so we don't have to sit through it, but the whole premise was to become your own hero and how your story is your superpower. And this is the secret to being able to create more influence, impact, and income. Now, I started off by sharing that with them because I've been able to live out my version of being my own superhero. But it didn't start off this way. Like, I wasn't like this fit kind of ninja warrior. In fact, my mom said I didn't even speak until I was around 4 to 5 years old. And I was very shy, very reserved, just very observant. And I shared this story with everybody, and they resonated so hard. And I think everybody had a version of the story that they went through in their own way, in their own experiences, maybe at different times. And I'm guessing it might be the same for you. And so I remember I was 5 years old, and I was in it was my first day of public school in the heart of North Miami. And I remember I walked into the bathroom stall. I was 5 years old, and within moments of me being in this bathroom stall, a bunch of fifth graders came in, like these 10, 11-year-olds came in, and they started to just beat down the door. They were just like kicking the door in. And finally, they ended up kicking the door in fully, and they were just beating me with backpacks and hitting me and kicking me. And I remember like my lip was bleeding, and I was just screaming for help, and nobody came. And eventually, what felt like 10, 15 minutes, it probably was only a few, but what felt like forever, they finally left. And I remember going to the principal's office, and I was just terrified. I was scared. I was hurt. I was crying, and I remember the principal, ended up bringing a whole bunch of kids in, and they lined them up, and they wanted me to pick out the kids. I remember just being so terrified, afraid to just speak, afraid to lose my voice. And the impact that this had on me, and I didn't even know it at the time. I learned this, as an adult years later, but in that moment I had lost my voice. And this repeated itself time after time after time, growing up with different people, different kids, different environments, different experiences. And growing up in South Florida, I'm sure this is the same in different parts of the country, different parts of the world, but there's a lot of gang violence down there. There's a lot of people that want to be gangsters. Some of them are actually gangsters. So there's a lot of gang violence. And so this repeated itself with in the streets of South Florida, in the school systems, and I just grew up just so scared and so terrified. And I was afraid to speak up. I was afraid to use my voice. And this got me into some serious trouble. And there's, in fact, one time, this is up in North Florida, I literally got thrown off of a bridge into the Gulf of Mexico and just left for dead. And I remember fighting and screaming and trying to get up. And there was a seawall that was 14 feet high, right? And I couldn't get up to it. I was like, trying to get up, and I was scraping my hands, and I couldn't get up. And I remember a moment where I finally was like, I'm tired of fighting. I can't get out of the water. And a storm started to come, and I was just like, this is it. Like, I was prepared to die. And like, in that moment, there was this, like, it was total surrender. I just was kind of floating on my back, thinking I was going to drown or get eaten by a shark or something. And if you've ever seen the movie Moana, how like the waves kind of like, they come to life. Well, what only can be described as like a godly moment. A wave literally kind of like lifted me up just high enough to where I was able to dig my wrist, and you could still see the scar right here. And I was able to dig my wrist into like a little hook that was sticking out of the seawall, and it pierced through, slid it open, and I was able to get this hand over the seawall, pull myself up. I was just bleeding. Blood was just oozing down my arm, and I had a white Hanes t-shirt on with a little hole here, and I was able to just like rip it off, I was like the Incredible Hulk or something, and I had to tourniquet my wrist to keep it from bleeding. And I remember I looked over, and there was a guy that was fishing over the bridge, and I was just like, why didn't you help? And he just kind of turned away. And it was in this moment where I realized, like, I have to be my own hero. Nobody's coming to save me. And fast forward a couple years later, I ended up becoming a firefighter because, again, I was seeking to become that hero that I didn't ever feel like I had. And so I wanted to be that hero. I wanted to, run in the burning buildings. I wanted to save other people. And while this is a story for another day, I ended up, doing a full career. No, I say full career, 7.5 years, almost 8 years into the fire service. And on year like 5.5, I ended up getting electrocuted in a house fire. But this prompted me into getting into fitness. I was kind of out of shape at the time. I didn't look like a superhero, let's put it like that. And so I ended up getting myself in shape after I got out of the hospital from this electrocution accident. And I ended up getting myself into like what I would consider superhero shape. And I thought maybe that was it. Maybe that was the thing that was going to give me that confidence, right? And it did a little bit, but it didn't solve all my problems. And so I ended up getting really fit, and I retired from the fire department, and I ended up becoming a personal trainer in a big box gym, which there are some lessons in there of its own, what I wanted to do and what I never wanted to do, seeing how they operate in kind of these big corporate gyms. And I ended up running boot camps, and again, long story short, I ended up growing my own fitness center where we grew it to around 298 members. And I'm sharing all of this piece for a reason, because there's a really big insight. There's a really big epiphany that you need to have if you want to be able to use storytelling, okay? And if you want to be able to use it to grow. And so during this process, okay, of me trying to, of now into fitness, I'm super fit, and I'm growing this gym, and I look very successful on the outside. There's something missing internally. And I couldn't figure it out, but I was seeking it. And so one day I had an investor come out. It was a member of our gym's husband. He came out, and he was like, "Hey, I would love to, invest into your gym. I'm looking to invest in something." And I was like, "Cool, let's do it." I was thinking about franchising. So we ended up franchising. Okay, he put $50K, I think, and I put around $30K. So we had around $80,000 that we put into, and we hired a franchising firm. We got fully franchised and all of that. And then I was out there like Ray Kroc trying to sell franchises. And I was basically running two businesses. This is a lesson right here. The person that chases two rabbits will catch none. I didn't have the infrastructure like I thought I had. I didn't have the necessary key team members that I needed to be able to do this thing. And so I'm over here literally trying to grow two businesses. And what ended up happening is they both suffered. And so let's just say within a few months of me trying to do this, my main location started to bleed money. And the franchise was taking a lot of money to get it off the ground. We were having to get commercials filmed and all of this stuff to market and sell it. And it was just crumbling. I ended up being $45,000 in debt. And this was the end of 2016, early 2017. And then February 15th of 2017, my firstborn, my daughter Ava, was born. And man, I remember sitting in the hospital just feeling so freaking stressed out, but yet so happy. It was just a weird kind of time. Because I was broke. I didn't have money to pay myself. In fact, I literally couldn't pay myself a paycheck for about a year and a half. And a few days after we got home from the hospital, I remember just sitting in front of my fitness center crying. I was inside of my truck, and I was just gripping my steering wheel, tears coming down my face, feeling like a freaking terrible human, a terrible man. And I just had, again, I can only describe this as like a seed planted from God himself, where I didn't know what to do, but I had this idea to just go start speaking. And I was terrified to talk. Like, again, I lost my voice. I was terrified to literally go out and speak, but I didn't know what else to do. And so I did it. And my first speaking event was to a bunch of kids. about vegetables, and I may or may not have been dressed like a freaking broccoli or something like that. And then I didn't get any clients from it, but I ended up, there was parents, all right, not the kids, but, and then I ended up going to talk to adults, to grown-ups, and there was about 100 people that I talked to at the Chamber of Commerce, and around this time, Facebook Live had recently become a thing, so I started to go live, and I was so terrified. Like, I don't have any papers I can use around, but I had papers. I was reading off of a script, and I was cotton mouth, and I was shaking and nervous, but I did it, and I started putting the reps in, and eventually I had a friend of mine. She worked for a TV station down in Miami called the Health Network. She asked me if I wanted to be on, and I was like, sure. So I ended up doing a few episodes with them down in Miami. And again, I was super nervous, but I did it. And I started getting all of this positive feedback from all of the speaking, all of the TV, all of the videos I was doing. People were like, hey, you're really good. And so I started to develop confidence. And so I was like, all right, well, I've always wanted to go out for national TV. I wanted to be on American Ninja Warrior. And I had tried previously, but I kept failing. And so if you don't understand the context of it, you have to submit a 3-minute video that demonstrates your story, demonstrates your energy, and that demonstrates your skill sets, right, to be on TV. And long story short here, I ended up getting on, and I asked the head producer of the show, I was like, hey, dude, I want to increase my chances to get on the show next time. What's the number one tip that you can give to me to get onto the show? And he was like, looked me dead in the eyes, and he said, your story is number one. Your story is your superpower. And so I took that and I applied it to my business. And so this was 2019 now, and I ended up, I was doing a lot of videos. I ended up applying it to my marketing, and I was able to grow an online fitness business really, really quickly. We were able to generate lots and lots of money. It impacted my my actual brick and mortar. My online business grew to where I was able to get rid of the gym and focus fully online. And this spiraled me into a lot of success, both financially, both, I felt really authentic. So I felt whole being able to give people my stuff. And that's what I want to finish walking you through here today. And so the first thing to understand here is that your story is your bridge. The story is the bridge that helps you take your ideal clients from the problem that they're in to the transformation, to that dream outcome. You literally bridge the gap for them, okay? And so I'm going to give you a few different stories that you can use into your business. So most people struggle to stand out online because they focus on tactics instead of what truly connects their story. They're out there chasing views, and I just did a video on the big engagement lie, so you could check that video out. But they're out there chasing views and vanity metrics when it doesn't matter. You can have 500 to 1,000 true fans in your audience, and you can make a killing. You can make an amazing living serving people. You could generate millions of dollars. You don't need a lot of people to really do that. And so the 3 levels of storytelling that you can use is the first is a macro story. And the macro story is going to be why you created the brand or the offer that you have. You could think about this like an origin story, like a backstory to your business. So for me, getting into what I teach now, which is I'm teaching coaches and entrepreneurs and impact-driven people how to be able to grow a profitable business that is impactful. And I'm showing them how to do it, how to get to 6 figures, and some even 7 figures have hit that. And so why am I doing this? Why do I do it? Well, I talk about my whole evolution and what led me to doing this, and even how I applied it into my own business, and how I was struggling to really break through my business, and how I started to apply these storytelling, how I came up with my accidentally really came up with my conversion content systems, the mechanisms that we teach. And people they resonate with it, right? And I did this even in fitness. I would tell my story about how I got electrocuted in a house fire and how that led me into getting fit. And people resonate with the stories. Now, here's another lesson, and this was a big takeaway for some people at the event that I was at, where this is another thing I learned from the producer on American Ninja Warrior around stories, is I thought I had to have these extraordinary stories. I was like, man, I gotta, I was sharing about the electrocution, I was sharing about all these things. And what he told me is the most ordinary stories are the ones that are most powerful, right? Because people can't always resonate with me being on American Ninja Warrior. But if I frame it in a way that like I was going after a dream or an aspiration, people can resonate with that. And so you don't need to have these big fancy stories, right? You want to have the ordinary stories that other people can resonate with it. Does that make sense? And so don't think that you have to get crazy. You just tell your authentic, true story. And then there's micro stories. So why do you teach the method that you teach? So I could tell very specifically, like, why am I teaching people about storytelling? Why am I teaching people how to get clients using the content systems that we have created? Like, I would tell that story, like how I came up with it, right? One day I was like literally at wit's end, and I was ready to freaking either go get a job again to help pay the bills because I couldn't keep consistent revenue coming in. And then I decided to try out this kind of post that was going to lead people to a masterclass. And there was a few different posts that I came up with a good hook, a good story, and a good call to action. I didn't really think it was going to work, but I did it. I posted it. The next day when I woke up and I was checking my notifications, I had hundreds of them. I had 12 or 13 DMs come in. And that's when I was like, oh, I think I'm onto something. And so I tried it again, right? So I'm telling basically my story of how I came up with the mechanism that I'm teaching. So this is like the bigger brand story is your macro. The micro is like the if you have a method or, a process that you're teaching people. And then there's mini stories. Mini stories are like the small everyday moments that drive engagement and relatability for people. You know what I'm talking about? And so these could be anything. And so I shared a couple, and let me see if I could pull this up. I actually did some videos on my YouTube channel on these too, which is a whole nother thing. When I create content, I literally will create a video. I'll create a post out of it. I'll use it in an email. So like I'm kind of repurposing. This is super meta, but this is me talking about a story. I'm using a story to about me speaking on stage, basically giving you this kind of talk here, right? But like, let me show you a couple of them here. There's a few of them. So I had a hater. I was sharing a post about my client Chris. I'll even show you the post really quick. It's not super far, right here. I shared this post, and I had this dude that was hating on it in the comment section, saying like, oh, you shouldn't be talking about revenue and all this stuff. And he was like demonizing money. And so I ended up creating this post, and I did a video on a podcast about the truth about money. And I told a whole story and shared my perspective on how money's not the villain, right? So that was the first one. And then there was a hater on my IG ad that was talking about, like, he was like, hey, I looked at your reels, you don't get any engagement, you should probably take your own advice. And I was like, I probably should take my own advice, right? Maybe I should. Maybe I should go chase engagement. But I came in here and I shared like the truth. I was like, the big engagement line, how I've actually made millions of dollars online, and I don't have a big audience, and I don't get tons and tons of engagement, right? And I shared this whole story, and I shared my perspective on how like most influencers are broke, and like when you have, and you see how I'm tying these things into lessons, right? So I'm sharing the story, and I'm tying these things into lessons, so my audience can like actually get value from it as well. And then there was one time like I was going, hopefully these help, right? I'm just trying to give you some examples and some the thought process through this, by the way. But I shared like I was going, my wife and kids were going to surprise me on Father's Day a few years back. And we went outside, and my truck was broken into. And they stole my favorite Ninja shoes that I can't get anymore. Like, they don't make them anymore. And I was so bummed. But then I thought about it. I'm like, man, these kids are probably have no dad. They're probably just like acting out, and it wasn't a direct attack on me. They were probably just walking around the neighborhood. And so I ended up creating content. I told a story around that, and I tied it to a lesson about the resilience that we need as entrepreneurs and how we have to change our perspective and have to have empathy for people, right? And my audience really loved it. And so those are the mini stories, okay? So your story isn't just what happened to you. It's how you connect and inspire and attract dream clients. So remember, this bridges the gap, and it makes you relatable. And so I will share this down below so you can click. I have a more in-depth whole process on how to create like a hero and villain story. This is something that I usually just teach inside my program, and then there's a framework on how to frame the struggle, how to shift into like the turning point. So this is where you'd be like, hey, this is the challenge or hardship or obstacle you were facing. This is the shift that you made, that turning point that started to change your perspective, the aha moment that you had perhaps. Then there's the lesson, what you learned from that moment and how it shaped your journey. And then there's the impact, how this led you to today and why it matters for your audience. Okay? And so here's I gave you kind of just a very short example just to give you some context into that as well. And then the micro story framework, it's really, really simple. I used to be on Hell Island and I was doing old method and trying to get desired result. Now let me draw on this. All right, trying to get desired result. And I was complaining about these things and it made me feel this kind of way. Then one day I discovered new method within time period. And then I got desired result and it made me feel desired feelings. I realized the truth about getting desired result was this realization. Now it's my mission to help other ideal audience get desired result for a reason why. Right? So it's really basic, as you can see, but it really works. And so you don't need anything fancy. This is just a really simple way to be able to tell a micro story about why you do what you do. And here's a whole example that I went into. So again, you can download these down below and be able to get this. But it's like I was stuck in posting nonstop on social media, right? So you could see I used to be on Hell Island, the place that I didn't want to be. But despite that, I was still getting blah, blah, blah. I kept complaining, blah, 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 right? It made me feel this kind of way. Then one day, turning point, you see, I realized it wasn't about this. It wasn't about volume. It was about messaging. New perspective. Within 30 days, right? So within time period, these are some of the results I got. And here's what I learned, right? Now it's my mission. You see? So this can obviously be, maybe not obvious, but this can be like an accordion. This could be stretched out into a whole video sales letter, or it could be scrunched down into just like hey, this is why I do what I do, right? And it bridges the gap for people. And then mini stories, there's so many different frameworks we can use, but this is a really simple one. What's the moment? A small but interesting, funny experience, right? Yesterday, my kids said, the word penis to me. I don't know. That's happened before, right? But you see what I'm saying? It could be something funny, right? Or it could be something interesting that happened. I was at the grocery store and you'll never believe what happened. The insight, the lesson or realization that it sparked. And it reminded me of this. Like this is the connection. How this ties into what you teach. So again, I showed you a bunch of examples up there and you could feel free to look at my social media. I do, at least Facebook, I do this all of the time. Right? This is exactly why XYZ is so important. Okay? And then if you want to have a CTA, you can comment. Like usually you're going to use more of an engagement hook, not necessarily unless you have some kind of lead magnet or masterclass or something that you did. Right? So here's a short little example that I shared, right? My daughter asked me, "Why do you always work on the computer?" I told her, "Because I help people tell their stories." She paused and said, "Do they know who you are?" That hit me. We focus so much on content, but if people don't know you, they won't buy. So share your story. Make them connect with you first. So very simple example. Again, this could be an accordion where you can stretch this out into a long post or video or scrunch it back down. Just like I had to make this talk 20 minutes and I'm already at 23 minutes, but this allows me to go deeper and hopefully give more context to people. And so the second thing after storytelling, this kind of all feeds into storytelling, but your message is your weapon. And so we are literally fighting against villains out here. And the villains in your industry could be, if you're in weight loss, it could be the diet industry, or it could be sugar, it could be Netflix, right? In the internet marketing space, the villains could be information. Information is a commodity. It could be, fake business gurus that are giving, dumb advice and trying to manipulate people, right? There could be so many different villains. But what we want to do with this messaging framework, and I'm going to unpack this a little bit, is we have to understand we have a struggling avatar. They're somewhere they don't want to be, and this is why they're going to hire you and exchange money for you to help them. And they want to be on this side, right? And so we talked a lot about how story is the bridge, but what we didn't talk about is how your unique solution is going to be the superpower for them. And so your story is your superpower. Your unique solution is what you give to them. So if you think about in like any of these movies like Star Wars, Yoda was giving his unique solution to Luke Skywalker. He was teaching him how to move stuff with his mind. And so there's some elements. This goes way deeper, by the way. I mean, for those of you that have watched trainings or have seen my magic messaging framework, this goes much deeper, but this is just a very light version so we can so I don't overwhelm you. So element 1 is we're going to know what's their specific pain they're in. What are the problems? What are the complaints they have, right? Element 2 is, what are they doing to try to solve these pains and problems and complaints? This is all element 1. Current beliefs. What are they believing to be true? Why are they taking these actions? Why do they believe they can't solve their problem? And then consequences. How much worse will it get if they don't fix their problem? Like, what's at stake? And then element 2 is a villain. We want to be able to name our villain, just like in any superhero movie. Like, imagine if in the movie Batman, let's just say the DC comics, let's just say they were like, hey, there's like a masked man running around. He just came out the sewer. We're not really sure what he's doing, and there's some other guy that keeps holding an umbrella, and we're not really sure. It's not raining or anything. We don't know why he's holding an umbrella, right? I don't know. There's not as much context to that. It doesn't really tell the story. But when there's like, yeah, there's this dude with this mask on. His name is Bane. He comes out of the sewers. He's kind of like jacked. I think Tom Hardy played him. And then there's like this other guy, Penguin, and then there's one guy, Joker, who like he was in prison, and he has this like mouth that comes out here, and it starts to give more, because you could see the visuals, you can hear the names, and so it makes it more impactful. And so we want to be able to name our villain, right? Maybe it's the complacency trap, or it's the restrictive diet trap, or it's the I call, in my space here, the content commodity trap, right? So we want to name the villain to make it more real, so we're fighting against something with our audience. And then element 3 is your uniqueness. So this all unpacks your solution. Do you have a unique mechanism? Like in my fitness brand, I had the stubborn fat solution. I had flex fuel nutrition. In my brand now, I have our in-demand model. I have our magic messaging framework that I'm literally showing you right now. So do you have at least one unique mechanism? Do you have pillars to your brand, right? If you're in fitness, you probably have like fitness, nutrition, and mindset or accountability or something. In my business, it's like I'm showing people how to basically connect with their audience, captivate their audience, convert their audience, and then cultivate so they have more monthly recurring revenue. So do you have pillars, and can we name them? Can we make them unique? And then your backstory. Your backstory definitely falls into here because it helps people be able to understand and resonate, and it gives them hope that they can do it too. And then element 4 is a new belief, right? Russell Brunson talks about this in his own way in Expert Secrets. I have a little bit of a different take on this just from my own experiences, but he talks about it's the domino belief, right? What's the belief you need that knocks over all other objections and, quote unquote dominoes. The way I look at this is like, what is the core belief around their problem and the desire that they have? That if they believe this belief, that they will want to buy your stuff. And so the example here is my audience used to believe in fitness that if they just ate healthy, they were automatically going to lose their belly fat. And I was like, fair, that's a start, better than eating like potato chips and sitting on the couch. But what if I told you that it's not about just eating healthy, it's about eating right? Boom, right? Eating right was my new belief. And then I educated them on eating right. I told stories about what eating right is. And that got them to buy into it, and then I showed them what to do, right? My belief now is like, I have multiple of them, but one of them is like, it's not just, if you just post content or DM people all day, it's like, and run ads and stuff, you're probably going to really struggle. And you're definitely going to be super inefficient. But if you learn how to communicate your message in a way that connects with people, that captivates them, and that ultimately influences and converts them, all your stuff's going to work. And I shall share stories around it. How messaging, by saying the right words in the right way to the right people, is the absolute key to making the rest of your marketing actually work better. And then element 5 is the aspiring identity. It's like, what's the desired result they want? What are the desired feelings? What's the ripple effect? Okay. So it goes a little deeper than this, but I think this is a really good kind of start to this. So, you can kind of do your own version on this. And then the last one here is your wisdom is your differentiator. Your wisdom is your differentiator. And by the way, before I move on, I know messaging people can get in their heads about. So I have a couple different things that you could do if you would like to get more messaging. I have a free masterclass that I did. I have a paid workshop that I've done. But the best thing that you might be able to do is I do offer one-off consulting sessions. I call them magic messaging makeovers. And it's quite simple. We get onto a call together, usually 2 calls, and I have you fill out a whole form. You go through, you do the work on the messaging, we get onto a call, I help you write a high converting message together. So if you're looking for some support, I have a free thing that you can do to get more deeper on this. And I also have a consulting session, which is not free, but that might be useful to you. So number 3, your wisdom is your differentiator. What does that mean? Well, what I believe to be true is that the new era of content creation is you sharing your wisdom. And what that means is, and here's a formula, is that your perspective, right, equals your unique advantage. No one else has lived your exact journey. So if you can use your unique perspectives, what your view on the world, your beliefs on the topic that you're helping people with, it's just pure different. Like nobody else can come up here and give this talk, period. Like they can give their version of this talk, but it's not going to be the same. They don't have the same stories. They don't have the same experiences as me. And so it gives me my own level of wisdom. You see what I'm saying? And you have that too. And that comes to your wisdom, right? Is your authority. If you share insights from your struggles, it's going to shape your expertise and it's going to separate you from everybody else. Nobody can give you the exact insights that you have, that you've learned along the way. And again, coming back to this, your story is your brand. How you see the world is what makes you stand apart. Period. End of story. Pun intended. But for real, when you can show up and just share your unique story, yes, there's so many different things, and I teach frameworks and I show people how to do this, but at the heart of it, we all are storytellers. We've grown up with stories dating back from books like the Bible, right? It's there's stories have just been a part of our lives, and so we don't have to overthink this. We just want to share more of it and tie it into teaching points. Now, there's a difference between just telling a story and telling a story, you know what I mean, and getting it to convert. Because if you're just wanting to be a storyteller, go be a storyteller. But if you're wanting to be a story seller, where you're telling stories that actually influence people to want to buy from you, that's a whole different story. I think I said story a lot right there. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Probably 8, 9 times. Anyways, speaking of that, how to post on social media to stand apart. Tell stories that shift beliefs. So the most easy thing that you can do is just challenge common industry myths, right? I just shared this example with you here, right? The big engagement lie. This is an industry myth, and I told a story and I shared some insights that help people, right? Share experiences that only you can share. Your journey is your credibility. So me sharing about how I grew a gym and how I launched an online fitness business and all of that, only I can share that because it's from me. So share your experiences that only you can share. Position your insights as the new solution. And so you want to be able to be a voice, not an echo. And I am so guilty of seeing other people are doing and just basically echoing their stuff. And I think we all go through that phase. Maybe, at least I think the majority of people do from what I see. Maybe because we're not confident in what we're saying, or we're just not sure if what we're saying is good enough. And that comes back to your voice. Your voice matters. Your message matters. And so when you share your insights, when you share your beliefs with people, your story, you now become a voice. You're not echoing what somebody else is saying. You see what I'm saying? That's the most important part right here. And so people don't follow information, they follow your wisdom. So own your freaking voice. And so here's an example content framework that you can literally swipe, is the myth. You could start with a common misconception in your industry. So this can be most coaches think, wrong belief. Or it could be wrong action they're taking is the key to success. Again, this is very generalized, but hopefully you get the point. And then the reality, your personal experience. So share a moment when you realized this wasn't true. So I used to believe this too. In fact, I followed old method, but it left me feeling so frustrated, right? Obviously, you would put this specific frustration. It left me feeling beating my head against the wall, and I was getting inconsistent revenue coming in and blah, 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 right? 3, the shift, the new perspective or lesson. Explain what changed your perspective. Then I discovered new insight, and everything shifted. Then I discovered that storytelling and systems were the absolute key to being able to get predictable leads coming in. And it shifted everything, right? The proof, personal result or client example. Show how this new approach works. So after I applied this, after I ran this for 30 days, I got 11 clients and I made $33,383 in cash, right? The call to action, engagement and connection. So you can invite your audience to engage. Have you ever questioned this belief? You all right? Comment below. Whatever it is, some kind of engagement and connection with them. Okay? So this is the full masterclass. This is what I shared here. Yeah, that's that. So remember this, your story is your superpower. And so the three main things that we talked about today were your story bridges the gap. And there are three main stories that you can use. There's macro stories, which is basically why you do what you do, what led you, basically your origin story in a way. It's what led you to doing what you're doing. Your brand, your offer, what you have. And then there's a micro story. Your micro story is basically around like why you're sharing, why you're teaching the methods that you're teaching. So it's like there could be a story that got you into like maybe if you're in weight loss, now why are you a weight loss coach? Why are you offering this stuff to people? Why do you have the specific brand that you have? And then you might be teaching flexible dieting. Why flexible dieting, right? So like there might be usually there's going to be a segment of that story or a separate story around that. Does that make sense? And then there's mini stories. These are everyday things that happen to you on a regular basis. And a little tip here as we wrap this up is the more multi-sensory you can bring people in and make people feel your story, the better it's going to be. Number 2, your message is your weapon. Your message is your weapon. You see, right now I'm building a school called the School of Impact. It's going to be an online school mainly for impact-driven type coaches and entrepreneurs. And I look at it as like if you ever seen the movie X-Men and you have Xavier who has the school for mutants, and then he has the X-Men who are teaching the mutants how to use their powers. Basically going to be like that because if you're watching this, you're probably a mutant, right? We have these, entrepreneurial genes, right? We have these messages, we have these unique gifts, and we're just trying to use them to basically pour our passion into growing a profitable business that helps people and makes us money, right? It's like, that's what we're trying to do. And so that's what my school is being built for. And what I really believe is that our message is our weapon, that your message, your ability to communicate to your ideal client, because right now they are suffering. They are suffering. Little suffering is good for humans. Prolonged suffering sucks. We probably all know somebody there. And right now there's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of villains. There's a lot of darkness that's literally keeping your ideal clients freaking dopamine, going for cheap dopamine, drinking, eating too much, on their phones, all this kinds of stuff all the time. And your message can help. Your message truly can be that weapon against the evil. And the better you can get at communicating that message to people, the more money you'll make, the more people's lives you'll change. And then third, your wisdom is your differentiator. So make sure to use your unique perspectives, share your stories, share your thoughts and views on the world, and truly become a thought leader using your voice and not becoming just an echo. So I hope this was massively helpful for you. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Again, check in the description. I'll have some links in there for you. And if you did find this helpful, make sure to click subscribe on the channel. And I would love to hear from you, so drop a comment down below. And as always, your message matters. Your story matters. Don't be afraid to speak it. As always, be seen, be heard, and be impactful.